Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand." "No," said Peter, "you shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no part with me." "Then, Lord," Simon Peter replied, "not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well." When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "Do you understand what I have done for you?" he asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you should also wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Because very truly I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them." That was a very famous passage of Scripture from John chapter 13, the NIV translation, where Jesus does this holy symbolic act for his disciples around their sort of last meal together, where he washes all of their feet. And he has this little exchange with Peter. But then at the end of that, he talks about, "Do you understand what I've done for you?" And as we've reflected on, not just for this podcast, but for our whole lives, what it means to lead like Jesus, this really feels like it encapsulates a lot of Jesus' life and ministry. And I've been really impacted by this particular verse lately. I joked in our last episode that we could talk about this for a couple hours. We won't do that for you, so you're welcome. but this subject is, people spend their lifetimes thinking about this.
They do.
So our 30 minutes will be great, I hope, but it won't be super adequate to cover everything. We're just going to focus in on a little bit of things here. But
Yeah.
Brian, you've spent, of course, a lot of time thinking about this as well,
Yeah.
and what it means, and have tried to embody it over the course of PCC's existence.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Jesus' servant leadership.
Yeah, I think, the follower of Jesus wants to live like Jesus. We aspire to become more like him. So if you're a leader, I would claim that Jesus was the greatest leader that ever lived.
Right.
And if that's the case, and it is the case, then I don't want to, as a leader, I don't want to just live like Jesus. I also want to lead like Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
There have been books written about this, and it's worth spending a lot of time studying it. As you mentioned, this subject deserves more than the half an hour we can give it.
Yeah.
But I wanted to just sort of put our toe in the water when we think about leadership, for those of us who are followers of Jesus, you cannot think about leadership in the absence of thinking about Jesus.
Right.
He is always a part of the equation in terms of looking to him for an example, and I want to lead the way that he did. So there are some components when I think about Jesus. When we started this series on leadership, I talked about some elements of leadership, and one of them was humility.
Right.
In this case, the scripture that you pointed out is Jesus demonstrating what humble leadership looks like.
Right.
The job of foot washing, as you know,
Mm-hmm.
was sort of the filthy, low job. Only the lowest servant would do such a thing. When I go walking around in bare feet in my yard or in my, on my driveway or in my garage,
Right.
the bottoms of my feet are dirty. By that, what we mean is dirt.
Right.
The bottoms of the feet of people in Jesus' day, they're walking around on the same road that the, camels and livestock have walked down,
Right.
and their feet literally are filled with feces.
Mm.
And so the lowest servant is doing not just a ritual thing, but something that is somewhat sanitary, and it is a nasty job.
Right.
So Jesus is saying, first of all, and this is a leadership principle that I learned from him in that there is no job beneath the leader.
Yeah.
I often say to our team, when you drive into church on a Sunday morning, we all get here early.
Right.
You get out of your car, the crowd's not here yet, we're getting ready to do rehearsal, blah, 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 and you see a piece of trash in the parking lot, that's your job.
Yep.
It's not the custodian's job, that's your job. If somebody comes to me on a Sunday and says the toilet's backed up, somebody might handle that, but I am not afraid at all to grab a plunger and a mop and say, that's my job. As a matter of fact, some of those things I want to do to remind myself and to remind others, this is the way Jesus led. There is no job beneath you. You want to know how I know that? There was no job below the job of the foot washer.
Right.
And Jesus decided he would be that.
Yeah.
So we have this fight. I don't know if we've talked about this on the podcast yet, Elijah, but it'd be worth bringing back up here. When we built our first building, there was a group of well-meaning people that wanted to do a traditional church thing. And they wanted to put a sign up near the door on the closest parking place and say, this is the pastor parking.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, you can give me a pastor parking place. And they were like, great. I was like, no, but it won't be there.
Yeah.
In the back parking lot at the Powhatan campus, there's this spot where water accumulates and it's got mud in it almost all the time.
Yeah.
And I said, that's where you'll put my parking place.
Mm.
And they were like, why is that? I said, because that's where Jesus would have parked his car.
Yeah.
He would have picked the lowly spot, the humble spot. And that's who I want to be. I want to lead like Jesus. I don't say that to, I don't want to I'm not trying to be prideful about my humility.
Look at me. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm simply saying,
It's the truth.
I'm trying to figure out how would Jesus lead, and I want to lead like that. Humility was at the top of his list. And then let's go from there. Let's deal with some of the other elements of Jesus's leadership. One of them was Jesus led with discernment, not fairness. This is going to rub people the wrong way. He led with discernment, not necessarily fairness. I want you to think about this. There were more than 12 disciples when he chose the 12 disciples.
Yeah.
There were more than 12 disciples when he chose the 12 disciples. The 13th guy, the 20th guy, they could have run around saying, it wasn't really fair. I worked as hard as those other guys, and I was as faithful as those other guys, and in some ways I was maybe more educated than those other guys, and I could have served Jesus better. It didn't matter. We don't get it. We don't have an insight as to why Jesus picked the 12 that he picked.
Right.
Some of them were idiots, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying. I would have.
Or we know literally nothing about them.
And some of them we know literally nothing about.
Yeah.
However, Jesus. So when I think about, we tend to live in a world that just says, well, this is not fair, but Jesus led with discernment, not fairness. So think about this. There are times when he would go through a village, everybody came to him for healing. There were times when Jesus healed some people but didn't heal others.
Yeah.
When Jesus withdrew to a solitary place to pray, he often left the crowd still half healed and half unhealed.
Right.
Not everybody got treated the same way by Jesus. He loved them all the same, and he valued them all the same. We're not talking about the value of your life.
Right.
But he did not think in terms of fairness. I want to lead like Jesus. I want to discern who is the best person to do this role, which is not necessarily the person who's been here the longest or the person who wants it the most. So let's use a practical example of something that is always a little bit can be very emotional for some people. Let's talk about how our worship assignments are made in terms of leadership in our church.
Yeah.
We say everyone is a 10 at something. I mean that. I believe that. Everybody's a 10 at something. But when we go to decide who's going to sing this song, the fact that someone else is on the platform that's really been very faithful, they've always been in the background, it's their turn. We don't ever say stuff like that. It's not your turn.
Right.
We have to figure out who honors God with excellence on this particular song, and that's the person who's going to sing it.
Right.
And sometimes that hurts people's feelings because they're like, well, I really want to do that. Well, want is not part of the equation.
Right.
We're not living in fairness. We're living in discernment.
Right.
We're trying to do what God wants us to do and make sure that everyone is in the seat that is best suited for them.
Yeah.
So I think that really matters. We have to think about, what does God want for this? When we lead like Jesus, I'll use a real modern controversial thing, whatever. When we lead like Jesus, everyone doesn't get a trophy.
Mm-hmm.
We have to think, what does God want for this moment and for this person, not in terms of whose turn it is or how long or fair. We just don't do that.
Right. And I think if I can,
Yeah, go.
so talking about worship, that's a place where I've spent a lot of my time. But as I've had the privilege of leading other teams here and doing things like that, I think it's important alongside of, because I can imagine the person listening to this who doesn't know anything about PCC or whatever, maybe being able to say, oh, okay, well, if you just prioritize excellence over fairness, it's going to create tension. It's going to create cliques, or, some people are better than others or whatever. Something I tried that I feel like I know Jesus really embodied, was if you think about not just the worship team, but I think about a church staff or anything like that.
Yeah.
As I've had people on staffs that I've led who have been like, man, I just want another opportunity, or I wish maybe I could be elevated in this way. Well-meaning, not like trying to, stroke an ego or anything like that. Just saying, I've been doing this a while. I want to be elevated or whatever. A point I always try to make to them is, in church life, in Jesus' kingdom, as you get elevated, your service becomes greater.
That's right.
So like you think you want the elevation of a status here in this organization. What I don't know that you realize just yet is, as you do that, your capacity and desire and sort of requirement to serve people more goes up.
That's right.
Like, that's really what you're signing up for.
That's right.
So the higher you climb, air quotes, in this organization, the more you have to serve.
That's right.
Because that's what Jesus is doing.
That's what he did.
In John 13.
That's right.
And it's the whole point he's making. Like, you call me master and Lord, and that's what I am. You should do that, because that's what I am. But see what I'm doing.
Right.
That's what the master does. That's what the Lord does. He serves. She serves.
That's right.
So I say that for our worship leaders too. Like, yeah, if you have a great skill, and not just a vocal skill, but you lead people with your expression and your body really well, that's awesome. Like, you are going to get these opportunities, but that tethered to that opportunity is, now you're like the biggest servant on this team.
That's right.
Right. So like, when hard decisions need to get made, when cuts need to get made, when you're asked to do something, like, I'm coming to you,
right?
Not the person who just joined the team.
That's right.
Like, they can just sit here and do what they want and relax and be comfortable for now. But you're picking up the chairs with me now.
That's right.
Like, that comes with the job.
Because that's what Jesus did.
Exactly. Yeah.
In fact, he said, you want to be the greatest, you got to be the least.
Yeah. Right.
So I think that's something that is often missed.
Yeah.
This idea. Jesus said, don't sit in the high place, sit in the low place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have to lead like that.
Right.
We have to live like that. So I completely agree with you. I think the next piece that I want to point out that Jesus did really well, if I want to lead like Jesus, I have to employ candor.
Mm-hmm. Grace and
This is something, gosh, man, I have to tell you, I wish Jesus didn't do this, because it would just be so much easier. I just want to be a nice guy, and I just want people to like me. But candor is something that Jesus employed. Look, he takes this guy who is like his right hand, says some great things about him. I'm talking about Peter now.
Mm-hmm.
So Peter, Jesus says, who do people say that I am? Who do you say that I am? Peter says, you're the Christ, the Son of the living God. Man, it's a mountaintop moment. A few verses later, Jesus calls him Satan, literally calls him Satan.
Yeah.
That's candor. For the record, maybe I just haven't achieved quite all the leadership status that I need to achieve yet, because I've yet to call someone Satan.
Right.
You
don't have the pull yet.
I have thought of someone as Satan.
Yeah.
I don't know that. I don't think I've ever called him that. Jesus called the Pharisees a brood of vipers.
Yeah.
So I think it is incumbent upon us to employ candor. I think probably the most appropriately numerated verse in the Bible is John 6:66. You were just in John. We'll talk about John 6:66, where Jesus has previously told these really hard teachings. He's used candor to say, here's some things you need to know. And in this particular verse, it says a bunch of people who were following him stopped following him, because the truth is super hard to say and super hard sometimes to hear.
Yeah.
But what I want to do is I want to be the kind of leader that employs candor. I can do it with kindness.
Right.
I don't have to candor doesn't have to be mean. In fact, it shouldn't be mean.
Right.
But Jesus perfectly embodied the fullness of truth and the fullness of love at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So truth without love is just harsh And love without truth is permissiveness. It's
Right.
unhealthy, sinful permissiveness.
Everything's okay.
Everything's okay. And everything's not okay.
Right.
So we put these together, and it's not a balance of the two. It is the fullness of the two.
Mm.
And that is where we find candor.
Yeah.
So that I can look at someone and I can say, this is not your best work, but I believe that you're capable of more.
Yeah.
I can look at someone and say, I'm sure you're going through a hard time, but you can't just keep being late to meetings.
Right.
I can look at someone and say, you need to express yourself in a more caring way when you're dealing with your staff or pastoral care situations or whatever. Candor is something that I think leading like Jesus means. You can't lead like Jesus and just always be liked by everyone. They hated him and crucified him.
Right.
In fact, he said, they're coming after you too.
Mm-hmm.
Blessed are you when you're persecuted. In this world, you will have trouble. He told his disciples famously in one time, he said, can you drink the cup I'm drinking from?
Right.
And in fact, James and John said yes, which I found obnoxious.
Yeah.
But they said yes. The point is,
We can.
Yeah, sure, no problem. How hard can it be?
Yeah.
But if you want to lead like Jesus, you have to be willing to employ truth-telling in a caring, productive, constructive way, but still be willing to do it. Now, I will say this is super hard for me. And Elijah, I've always admired you and your willingness to do this without anxiety. I am an anxious person. I get all up in arms about this, and I have not perfect. I can do candor. I just can't seem to do it without tying myself in knots yet.
Mm.
I wonder if you'd be willing to talk a little bit about how does this work for you?
Yeah. I think that the way I've tried to think about this, and maybe some of it is just, I don't know, part of how I was raised and I haven't uncovered yet, but the way I try to think about candor with anybody really, especially the people I work with though, is, as we've talked about on this podcast before, like, I truly believe when I'm having a candor conversation, for lack of a better way of saying it, with somebody, that it is for their benefit,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I'm not coming down on somebody just because I'm trying to be intentionally ugly, or I genuinely think they just don't have it, whatever it is. If I'm having a candor conversation with somebody, it's because I believe that and I can be wrong, but if they take what I'm saying and take it to heart, they will be better for it on the other end, right? So I feel like I'm giving them a gift by having candor with them.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm actively hurting people when I refuse to do it because I'm afraid of it, right? And like, so if somebody, just back to the music example, if somebody really wasn't good or wasn't on their A game or whatever, you take it. Anybody can have a bad day anytime, right? But if it's like a pattern, if I refuse to acknowledge that because I'm afraid they're going to hurt my feelings or leave, or I'm going to hurt their feelings, or they're going to leave my team or whatever, I am actively hurting them.
Yeah.
Because I know if I know it, others know it.
Yep.
And so, and then maybe they'll one day be like, you knew all this time.
Why didn't you tell me?
You didn't say anything.
Right.
Right. And so I don't ever want to be that. In fact, I would rather somebody get mad at me and I can just absorb all of it and them be better on the other end.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I also think that when we think about grace and truth, as John kind of lays it out in chapter 1, he says he's he's grace and truth. We kind of use that language sometimes for this. I don't feel like one necessarily has to come before the other. I think especially when you really care about people, which is funny because like we do insights colors here and my main one is green. So you would think I would be not able to do this, I think, based on what it is. But I think that we assume that I have to have trust with somebody before I can have candor with somebody. And I push back against that notion.
Okay.
I think that they can go both ways.
Okay.
So sometimes my willingness to have candor with a person is what builds the trust.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
That makes sense. I can
because
see that.
if they come out of it and be like, you know what, you were right, and they'll see this person does actually care about me, which builds us some trust. Now there are certain areas you can't go before there's trust, which is why I think it kind of goes both ways. And we don't want to go where we're uninvited in people's lives sometimes.
Right.
Like if somebody's having a marital issue and I hardly know them, like,
sure,
it's probably
that's
not my
right.
place
Absolutely.
to go have candor with them.
Sure.
at the same time, especially if they're on my team and we're working together and we're trying to accomplish this mission together, intrinsic at that in that relationship should be that we're going to make each other better.
Yes.
So we've already agreed, even if we don't know each other super well, by nature of being on this team together, we're going to have candor.
Yes.
And if you're not cool with that, then this team is not the one for you.
Right.
Basically.
Right.
Now, as you said, we're going to do it with love. We're going to do it with kindness, which you can do and still get to the point. So I think the combination of those two things, like I don't feel like I have to have full trust with somebody before I have candor, because I know that the candor can build trust.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I believe that by being candorous, I guess you would say, I'm giving them a gift.
Yes.
So long as I've thought through it and I do it well.
Sure.
So that's really it.
I think that's true too. And I had not spent a whole lot of time thinking about the fact that the candor itself is trust building.
Right.
I think if it's done well.
Right.
I will say that again, this episode is about leading like Jesus, and Jesus led with candor. He told the truth.
Right.
Sometimes that was well received. Sometimes it was not well received.
Right.
And so if we're going to put ourselves in that paradigm, we have to recognize sometimes our candor will not be well received.
Oh, for sure.
So I have had people be very upset with me about. I had one person one time. I did some truth telling that needed to be told to them. I felt strongly they did not see themselves. They were in a public setting. They behaved in a certain way and didn't recognize the damage that they were doing to their own character and reputation, as well as hurting some people around them. And I said it to them. I got them privately. I'm a big fan of, to the extent that I can ever help it. I don't want to call somebody out in front of people.
Right.
Because I want to treat other people the way that I want to be treated, and I don't appreciate being called out in front of other people either.
Mm-hmm.
So I pulled this person aside after the fact, and I said, I need you to, I'm hoping you'll appreciate how this moment happened and what it looked like. And I told the truth and gave it to her. And sometime later, she asked for a meeting with me and essentially said, I wish you wouldn't have said that to me. And I said, you're telling me you would prefer that I not tell you what I see when I see something that is hurting you, that you're doing that's hurting you. And she said, that's right. I'd prefer you just not say it.
Mm.
That I can recall, that's the only time I've ever had that happen, but I've had it happen.
Yeah.
And so I have to operate with the integrity that says I'm living into my leadership that is trying to aspire to be like Jesus. Jesus told the truth.
Yeah.
And there were times that people did not receive it well. I have to expect that that's going to happen with me too.
Yeah, definitely.
But for the most part, I think people around me appreciate the candor. And here's an important thing about candor. You have to be able to take it out, not just dish it out. Take it, not just dish it out.
Yeah.
You got to be able to take it, not just dish it out. So if I'm the one running around telling everybody the truth about themselves, but I can't take it when somebody tells me the truth about me, I got a real problem.
Oh, yeah.
I have a major character problem. That's going to be a leadership problem. This is one thing that I can't think of. I'd welcome your thoughts on this. Off the top of my head, I can't think of a time when this was an issue for Jesus. Because, when you're a sinless guy, what possibly could be, said to you to shape you? Maybe. This one comes to mind. Is it Luke chapter, I don't know what, 3 or 4, Jesus, his parents, John and Mary lose him.
Right.
Joseph and Mary lose him.
Yes.
And he stayed back. He's gone for 3 days.
Yep.
Like, if you lost your kid for 3 minutes, you would know it. I don't know how, anyway, different culture, different time, different sermon. Anyway, Jesus is back in town. They go find him.
Yep.
And she's like, why would you do this to me? Mary says, why would you do this? And he says, didn't you know I'd be about my Father's business, whatever. And then from there on, he complied, right? He lived into,
right. Went back with him. Luke 2.
Whatever. Luke 2.
Luke 2.
Okay, so I was there.
Yeah.
So maybe there's that moment.
Yeah.
I don't know. But the point of all that is to say, I have to be willing to take candor. People do walk into my office, and I think we did talk about this early on when we talked about some team building stuff, and they asked me for a last 10% conversation.
Yeah.
And last 10% are easy to grasp. That means Lencioni argues that the first 90% is easy to say, your hair looks great, your shoes are nice, blah, blah, blah. The last 10% is what we withhold. And that's, hey man, when we were in that meeting the other day and you made that joke about me, it really hurt my feelings. Or you've been late to this meeting 3 times and I don't understand why it's setting a bad example or whatever. The last 10% is the part we withhold. This is where the candor comes into play. The point is, I have to be willing for somebody to walk in my office and say, hey, Brian, I need to have a last 10% conversation with you, which that language, we use that pervasively. I got to spend some time with a pastor last week that his pastor's a little bit of a smaller church, and he's invited us to kind of coach him. And we were in this meeting. I was in an office with Lenny and one of our worship leaders, and as we were talking to this guy, this language, last 10%, came up several times. And finally, he held up his hand. And he was like, "Hey, I don't know what that means." So we explained it to him. And every time people hear about this, they're always like, "Wow, that sounds so amazing." And can I just say, it really is so amazing.
Yeah.
When you walk in my office and say, "Hey, Brian, can I have a last 10% conversation with you?" It allows me the emotional preparation of taking a deep breath, saying to myself, you need to listen well, don't be defensive, because I'm capable of doing all that stuff.
Yeah, we all are.
If I get ambushed, I'm capable of that. But if you tell me it's coming, I know how to do it. I will listen well. I will really be open to what you say.
Yep.
So we've just got this language at our vernacular now, and it's part of why candor, I think, works pretty well in our organization.
Yeah.
I would not say we get an A+ at this. But I think we're getting better at it, and we've decided it's a big value because this is how Jesus led.
Exactly. I mean, it's hard when you consider the people you work with family.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like we don't work in a corporate environment.
Right.
I'm not saying it's necessarily just easy there either,
Right.
but I feel like I basically know everyone's family here.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so that, it makes it hard. It's the same reason why the candor conversations are hard with your actual family.
Yeah.
Because of the relationships that go deep. I think what helps with candor as well, or one of the other benefits, and if we can move on from candor here in just a second, but is that this is just conjecture. We don't know this from Scripture, but I often think about at the end of when Jesus is being buried, particularly in Luke, he mentions Joseph of Arimathea.
Mm-hmm.
And it says that he was a member of the council. And you spent all this time reading Jesus sort of having heated back and forths with these people.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it ends with, so they plotted to kill him. Basically.
Right.
But I just wonder if when a guy like Joseph of Arimathea first met Jesus, he was in that camp. But he actually took the candor to heart.
Oh, wow.
And looked at himself.
Yeah.
And said, am I missing the mark here?
Right.
And then at the other side, it says, who had not consented to their decision and action,
right.
i.e. to kill Jesus.
That's right.
Again, I don't know that. Maybe he never was or whatever, but these Pharisees, these Sadducees, whatever, they all get lumped into one group in Scripture most of the time,
right.
Especially in the Gospels. But I have to think that there were some that when they were there, they thought, maybe I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Oh, you know it.
And we just don't hear about them.
That's right.
So that's the power of candor as well. It can be that if we as the receiver actually take it to heart.
Right.
And believe that the person giving it to me actually does love me and care about me.
That's right. Which gets to maybe another point. While I agree with you that candor builds trust, it is also incredibly helpful that people actually know and believe that you care about them.
Yes.
If I have a hidden agenda, or if I have an ulterior motive, or if I'm trying to manipulate you,
right,
then you rightly are not going to receive any truth-telling.
Right.
Because even if what I'm saying is right or accurate, it has a secondary motive.
Yeah.
Other than just your caring about you.
All I mean to say is I don't think it's always one then the other.
Yes.
Right?
And I think you're right.
And I don't think you necessarily have to get to a certain quote-unquote trust threshold before you can speak candor.
Right.
Like there's some imaginary line somewhere.
Sure.
Mostly what I mean is I think one of the reasons we don't do it very often is because we have just convinced ourselves I don't know them well enough.
I haven't earned the right.
I haven't earned the right yet.
Right.
When you probably have. And in fact, if you said it in all the ways Jesus would, with love and kindness and all that, it will only expedite the trust you can build. That's all I'm trying to say.
Right.
I don't think you can, if I take over a team, I'm not going to walk in day one and be like, you're doing this bad, you're not good at this,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
Yeah, you shouldn't do that. But maybe it's not just always one than the other.
Yeah.
That's really it.
So I would say, though, that one of the things that Jesus did exemplify when it comes to leading like Jesus was presence. He was with the people. You think about this. The guy was a rock star.
Right.
I mean, everywhere he went, people knew him. We have multiple accounts of people wanting to make him a king. Jesus could have seized political power, separated himself from the people, and lived in a bubble.
Yeah.
Now, the story would have ended differently.
Sure.
But the point is, leading like Jesus meant being present with people.
Mm-hmm.
He spent time with ordinary folks. He could have sort of cordoned himself off and spent all the time with the elite people, but he chose not to do that. And I think that it's incumbent upon leaders to think about presence with your folks.
Right.
I actually think about this a lot. The listener who's a part of our church this might make you uncomfortable, or it might be a surprise to you. I don't know. But since we're transparent, I'm just going to tell it. When I'm not preaching, I go to other campuses and I'll go to our prison campuses too, and sometimes and places I don't go very often. There are always a few people that sort of see me like a celebrity because all they see is me on a screen. Mm-hmm. Many of them have not met me in person, whatever. And I am totally, completely at ease talking in front of a large group of people. I could speak to a crowd of 10,000 and it wouldn't rattle me. I've been in front of people my whole life. It's the thing that I think I was born to do, and I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah.
I am completely uncomfortable with the idea of being a celebrity. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is I see myself, I really, really see myself as just an ordinary person.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, Elijah, I think I could fill a notebook of things I wish I could change about myself, but not that. Mm-hmm. I like that about me. I think I don't want to elevate myself beyond who I really am. Jesus, who could have done that.
Right.
Think Philippians 2. If the listener doesn't know Philippians 2, you ought to go read Philippians 2. He had every right to consider himself for who he was. He was divine.
Right.
And yet he humbled himself, walked with people, spent time with people, was present with people, and therefore, no matter what status I achieve or success my ministry has or however many books I sell or whatever, I always want to live and lead like Jesus did, which is I'm going to think of myself, I am just an ordinary guy, and I'm going to be with people as much as possible. I'm a pastor at heart, so when I can help people, when I can spend time with them, when I can cry with them, when I can pray with them and help them navigate life, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And I think that leading like Jesus with presence is key.
Absolutely. It brings us nicely back to John 13 because Jesus says, now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. And now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. It's really our call as a leader. Sure. And any leadership topic we could talk about is completely underscored by exemplifying Jesus's leadership, what he taught, what he lived, what he died for, really. And so we could keep going, and I would love to, but right. I know you're listening and you're about at work at this point. You're like, I want to keep listening, but you got to go to work. I get it. So we'll spare you. I know we'll come back to this subject somewhere down the line. So as always, really appreciate you guys listening and are always open to the feedback. Thank you, Brian, for your insight here. And I'm stoked I got to talk a little bit too, because I am really passionate about that subject.
We're blessed from listening to you too.
Well, I appreciate that. I didn't say that, so you'd say that. I'm trying to stay humble here. I just no, but really thank you guys, and thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.